Telefonica Dakar 2004 set off from the heart of France in the Auvergne, where the prologue was being held for the second time. It was one of the rare innovations as the event went back to its roots after last year's Egyptian interlude. France, Spain, Morocco, Mauritania, Mali, Burkina Faso for the rest day, and then of course Senegal with the legendary finish on the shores of Lac Rose. All in all, a traditional Dakar. It's got daunting stages, and most notably the three between Tantan and Neymar.
Le point fort.
For me, the high point will be the epic stage between Tajika and Neymar. It will be run over one day, but usually we've taken two in the past. This return to tradition probably explains the massive turnout in the Grand Hall d'Auvergne. There hadn't been so many competitors since 1990, 607 of them, including Richard Sankt, Mioni, Roma, and brand newcomer Colin McRae from the World Rally Championship. Injured last year, Kenjiro Shinazuka is back. Two-time winner Jean-Louis Schlesser, Jutta Kleinschmidt with the brand new VW, crowd favourite Luc Alfond as well. But for many of the amateurs, it was going to be very difficult to leave the family behind. He said, I knew it wasn't going to be easy, but not this tough. So, the start line, January the 1st, 2004, and an African rally starts in snow. The 1.5 kilometre super special opening stage was absolutely wintry as it could get. But the man who was fastest over those 1.5 kilometres was Kenjiro Shinazuka. He came out quickest in the car section, Graziani for the motorcycles with his 450, and De Roy in the trucks. Then came the first liaison, 550 kilometres by autoroute to Narbonne. A first chance for people to see the sun. After the snow of the first stage came the mud of the second. 25 kilometres around Narbonne was very, very difficult indeed for the motorcycles. On four wheels, although the Mitsubishis got through quickly, the man who got through even quicker was Jose Maria Servia, although a little further back another competitor blocked the road. The stage was cancelled. Zanaroli saying the sun is out, but we're going to have to call it quits for today. Janil de Villiers, he had a roll with his car, although he got to the finish safely. His teammate Yves Loubet already out of the Dakar with an electrical problem. But it was the French Enduro champion David Fretenier on the 450cc two-wheel drive Yamaha that came out on top both at Narbonne and on the Spanish sand at Castellón. He was literally flying. His speed was such that favourite Cyril Desprez made a mistake at the first corner in Spain. He was lucky to get away with this. Many, though, were caught out by the especially soft sand in Spain. Hundreds were literally going down. And as always on the beachfront at Spain, the first mechanical mishaps were appearing. Some people were out. Gerard De Roy was a favourite in his DAF truck, and every metre counted on the Castellón stage.
Okay, let's finish up. C'est bon.
Good. I think the hole was a little deep, but we got through, said Isabelle Patissier. 2004 and Africa provided a very wet welcome to the Dakar. To say the least, witnessing the deep water was something the riders and the drivers were not prepared for. The month before, torrential rains had hit Morocco, the likes of which had not been seen in some 30 years, and dried up rivers were full to overflowing. Competitors, including Richard Sankt, were in big trouble. Here this rider says you can usually get through on a motocross style, but it's crazy. We've had sand, we've had dust, we've had the heat, we've started to climb, and then we're surrounded by water. The cars don't fare much better either. Some people were lucky to get through here, including the Schlesser buggy and Luc Alphonse, but not the 2001 victor Jutta Kleinschmidt from Germany in her Volkswagen Touareg. The bow wave coming over the front of the machine and straight down the air intake. A picture says 1,000 words. Her face said it all.
I think we get water in the engine.
So Kleinschmidt was in trouble, her rally in tatters, and so was Ari Vatanen just seconds later with his Nissan. It didn't look like much, but millions of dollars had been wasted in just a short distance. This Italian bike rider saying the engine is flooded. There's too much water in my engine and I'm in the middle of the desert. It is ridiculous. No one will believe it.
Unbelievable.
Vatanen had water everywhere as he tried to get the water out of the cylinders, whilst even Jutta Kleinschmidt, a bike rider on the Dakar herself, was helping out other competitors. On board with this driver, he says, look ahead, they're all stuck over there, so we're going to have to play it cool here. Fabrizia Pons sees them coming and directs them over to her right-hand side, whilst Kleinschmidt continues to help the Italian rider. The spirit of the Dakar everywhere. The co-driver on board with this car saying, come on, come on, come on, let's go between the rocks and let's play it cool. So water was ironically the first major challenge of the Dakar 2004, but the next one was soon on the horizon. 1,800 kilometers between Tantan, Attar and Neymar, the first marathon stage.
Oh, it's, I don't know, it's probably about 12, 14, so I have an hour. I'm a little bit anxious.
Many people having little to no sleep at all, particularly the mechanics, all hands on deck as always. This was going to be a long couple of days. Spain's Nani Roma prepared for the long nighttime ride to get to the border for the start the next day. And the border between Morocco and Mauritania loomed. And at the start line, people were grabbing precious minutes' sleep. The medical crews helping everybody on the Dakar, no matter who they are. And this guy being woken just moments before he leaves the line. He says this guy came in very, very late last night. We're going to make sure he's not too tired. He's going to be leaving in a few moments' time, so I'm going to wake him up and make sure he doesn't fall asleep on the bike. So the Dakar 2004 was into Mauritania. Mark Miller was going well from the USA with his pro truck, whilst other people were getting caught in the dust of the trucks. It was going to be a long day if you're driving like this and finding that the truck just goes a little quicker when you pull alongside. Still, people, though, were very, very tired. And of course, when people get tired, the accidents happen. Take it easy, she says. What's your name? Emiliano. What's your date of birth? 1960. Where do you live? Standard questions for a big bang on the head. Back behind the truck, he says, I don't bother looking at the road. I try to keep the top of the truck in view. But if I lose it, it's over. And then I have to hit the brakes. Absolutely mad. This year, we've really seen it all on this Dakar. We left in the snow and the cold. We get into Africa and there's been a sandstorm. The whole lot. But that's the Dakar for you. It's just like real life. You have moments of fear, anguish and happiness. The whole lot. Back on board with this crew. This time they're caught behind the Sugawara truck, but the Japanese driver pulls over to let them through. That's cool, he says. Let's give them a thank you. And as the speed increased over the plains, so did the accidents. Stage 8 from Attar to Tajika, 355 kilometers, but early on in the stage there was a very difficult road which everybody found hard to find. People were going left, people were going right. It was a very, very frustrating time for many people. And still more accidents were happening.
On y arrive.
Okay, let's have a look. You've got one, two, yes, your collarbone is broken.
Ouais. Bon, allez. Je suis avec les deux motards numéro 151 et 156.
I won't get to see Lacrose this time. My dream is over.
Le racé s'envole.
On board with this rider to Tajika, and he was still at the beginning of the stage and still lost. What a mess, he says. I look at my GPS, it seems okay, but one guy goes left and the other one goes right.
Every week, we bring you the very best action from around the world. World-class highlights, superstar interviews. It's exclusive, compelling, taking you places you've never been before, with great features and cutting-edge sport, all in a single show. So tune in, sit back and enjoy the ride. Gillette World Sport, exclusive to Supersport. Every Thursday night. Al Pacino is Don Hollywood.
Simone appears only when I want her to appear.
He pulls the strings, capiche?
You don't hide from me in a town this small, get it?
And in June, he's gonna make you an offer you can't refuse.
You think about how I can hurt you.
Either watch his movies on Mnet this month, or you'll be swimming with the fishes, capiche? It's not personal, it's just business with Al Pacino in June on Mnet. See guide for details.
The finish line official saying it's 8:20 at night and we've got about 20 or so motorcycles and 18 cars here at Neymar. Oh, it's just peanuts. But for Mick Extance and Stephen Haig, they were doing well.
It was a harder day today, or?
Yes, but here
The Latvian car crews were doing well on their initial Dakar rally, whilst other people just saying that was one mean stage. And then it started to rain. Could you believe it?
It's finished.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
One long day. I do not want to go through that again. I want to go home. I'm tired. I want to go to bed. A bath and a bed.
Paul and Mark Round still having a sense of humour, whilst Eric Vigouroux had a flat front tyre after being towed the last few kilometres. What time is it? Well, I had a big fall on the soft sand. It's now 10 to 9. That late, he says. Well, I knew it was going to be a tough stage, but not quite that difficult. However, after 3 epic days, the survivors were met by an official communique that the race was going to be neutralised for 48 hours.
Wow. A rest. It's like you almost think we're tired. Pah.
So the rally was halted because of terrorist threats. Certainly no risks could be taken. He says that the French and Mali authorities warned us yesterday about security risks concerning tomorrow's stage between Neymar and Mopti. They're not able to provide us with the level of security that we require. So as a consequence, taking logistics into consideration, we have decided to cancel the stage and replace it with a 2-day road section to Bobo Dioulasso, but via Bamako. The neutralisation of the Dakar 2004 with the cancellation of stages 10 and 11 came just at the right time for many of the motorcycle riders. Everybody was put on an Antonov to fly from Neymar to Bamako, a welcome couple of days rest. The 3 stages between Tantan and Neymar had certainly taken their toll. 72 cars, 78 motorcycles and 41 trucks were all that remained in the rally. The cars had to take the road section from Neymar to Bamako. It was nearly 1,000 kilometres, and some interested spectators were also on the route. The rally continued to go further and further south, deep into Black Africa, the Dakar convoy stretching out like a caravan through the villages and through the countryside. Through the villages they went indeed. Jutta Kleinschmitz with her VW Touareg, together with Bruno Sabi, taking a gentle stroll through and past the local spectators who had days off school to see the Dakar come through. The day which was to have had stage 11 saw everybody go by road 600 kilometres from Bamako to Bobo, the place for the rest day of the Telefonica Dakar 2004. All in all then, 3 complete days without competitive driving.
Ça va, t'as bien dormi?
You have a good sleep? Asks the marshal. You're going to need your gloves on this stage. And as the countdown progresses, we'll see you later. In the motorcycle category, KTM's victory overall is a foregone conclusion. The question is, which rider is going to be the victor? The obvious favourite is Richard Sankt, former 3-time winner. But there's also Fabrizio Mioni, 2-time winner. Nani Roma from Spain, he's always had bad luck on the Dakar. Will this be his year? And not to mention Frenchman Cyril Desprez, the reigning Rally Raid World Champion. There's also South Africa's Alfie Cox. He's always in with a shout for victory. But also challenging these top riders are the likes of Italy's Giovanni Sala and also Frenchman Jean Brucy. But it started dramatically the first 5 kilometres into Africa, and Richard Sankt fell at over 65 miles an hour. He hurt his forearm, needing 8 stitches in it. It was not a good start for the Frenchman. 2 days later, the Italian Sala was going well until he hit an enormous stone, and he went head over heels and straight into the medical helicopter. He was out of the rally. In the early stages of the rally, though, the main contenders were eyeing each other, the focus being not to make a mistake. But it was a Spaniard, Isidre Esteve Puyol, who made the most of the opportunity. Long-time teammate devoted to helping Jordi Arcarons and Nani Roma, he would finally been given the chance to run for the victory himself. But it didn't go well. Although he was leading overall, he fell dramatically early in Africa, and the mechanical problems forced him way down the order. On board with this rider, he's just explaining to us that when you ride over the fresh sand, the problem is that the soil is all churned up and the bike gets less stable. Harder. American Scott Harden was in the hunt together with Australian rookie Andy Caldicott and Dutchman Eric Verhoef. Others, though, were sticking together and still in trouble. The Harden-Caldicott-Verhoef trio were doing well, but Verhoef was the first to go down and out of the rally. For Scott Harden, he was doing brilliantly well. He was supposed to be the Red Bull KTM team manager up until 2 weeks before the event. But every day of every Dakar brings potential problems, and Caldicott, who was in the top 10, was unfortunately caught out because of these. What a shame.
I have broken my ankle. Do I keep going or?
Caldicott out by the time he got to Attar. So the underdogs, Verhoef, Caldicott, and then unfortunately Harden, were out. Continuing on board with this rider, he says, look, this is very, very soft sand. And it's so difficult with nearly a 220 kilogram bike, especially when you've just refueled. The bike is so much more heavy, and it's very difficult. Sometimes, though, a professional and amateur rider, privateer, can be together. PG Lundmark, the rugged Swede, was always within a shout of a top 5 finish, and together with Jānis Vinters from Latvia, these two were doing very well indeed to battle with the professionals at the top of the fields. But unfortunately, it was Vinters who crashed first, and he was out of the rally. It was a terrible shame for Vinters. He had been finishing stages ahead of Mioni and Cox, but later that day, PG Lundmark was also in trouble.
Over.
The rear suspension completely broken, his 5th position had gone, and he slipped down the order. The first big erg of the rally was the Chebib erg. Tricky to cross, but much tougher than the ones that still lay ahead. And it was in this erg that the Japanese rider Sano was going to lose all his strength and nearly all his spirit.
Yeah, little what? Maybe it's tough. Yeah. Just slide, yeah, a little bit. Shut up. Yeah, it's good.
The pace was picking up, particularly on stage 9 as the Dakar went south to Neymar. The battle had really hotted up between Richard Sanct, former 3-time winner of the Dakar Rally, and Spain's Nani Roma, yet to properly get to the finish of any Dakar at all. Clearly the two of them were going to fight it out for the first position. Isidre Esteve Puyol had lost too much time. Cyril Dupre had got lost on one day and lost too much time. Fabrizio Mioni had been plagued by mechanical problems, which left only the Spaniard and the Frenchman to still battle not only with themselves, but for Sanct to battle with that still injured and hurting arm after his fall early in Africa. The team strategies between the Gauloise KTM squad and the Repsol KTM squad were going to play their part. Isidre Esteve siding with Roma, whilst Frenchman Jean Brucy was siding, of course, with Richard Sanct. But Brucy was to retire from a brilliant third position when he fell and broke his collarbone. It was a cruel, cruel twist of fate. The rally went past Tichit and then on to Neymar. The stage was certainly set for the showdown. Roma held a lead of a mere 3.5 minutes over Richard Sanct. They may have been on KTMs, but they were worlds apart as they battled for the lead of the Dakar. It was simple. Richard Sanct had the navigational skills, whilst Nani Roma was a bit stronger physically and had a bit more resilience. They were both on the 660cc single-cylinder KTMs, and the battle plan was quite simple. Just go absolutely flat out and try and shake off the other. They were battling for seconds, but even Nani Roma was getting caught out in the sand. Towards the end of the rally, Roma had made navigational errors as well as getting stuck in the sand, and he felt as if the Dakar was slipping through his hands like sand. On stage 14, returning to Tajika, he was even asking the marshals how long it had been since Sanct had gone through. Twice Roma thought he'd pay dearly for this navigational error. He thought he'd even lost the rally to Sanct for good. But twice he managed to keep the pressure on and he managed to catch Sanct up. Roma at last was beginning to see the Dakar in his sights. Nani Roma from Spain was going to win the Dakar, the very first time that a Spaniard was to do as such on two wheels. He'd had more than his fair share of bad luck, mechanical mishaps and last gasp defeats. He'd been pulled out of the rally 7 times out of 8 attempts through problems before. Mioni saying the Spanish curse is over now for Nani. The curse of Jordi Arcaron's finishing runner-up 4 times is over. Mione took 6th position on the Dakar 2004, his last time we would see him competing. He had done so on the enormous 950cc KTM V-twin, but it was on the stage to Dakar when his bib mousse failed him that he essentially lost this year's event. He was set to win the stage then, never mind take over 1st position. Norwegian Pal Anders Ulvasæter took 5th position by the time we got to Dakar, a just reward for his consistency. Alfie Cox and Syl de Prey fought it out for 3rd position. It was very, very close, just seconds between them come the finish. The South African at one point had 16 minutes over the Frenchman, but by the time they got to Dakar, Syl de Prey got 3rd position, just 4 minutes ahead of Cox. The runner-up from 2003, de Prey was not really on the same form in 2004. Too many crashes, too many navigational errors lost him a chance for the victory. He'll be back though in 2005. Further down the order, the stages from Bobo to Bamako saw dust and many corners, and as always many people getting caught out. Through the villages of Black Africa, this rider's saying, I've got to slow down for this village. But thank you for your songs, everybody. Thank you. After last year's trip to Egypt, this was Black Africa, and the many, many creatures on the road were for all to see. Not only pigs, but also monkeys. Maybe we're going to see some lions next. It was a day without any wind to take the dust away, but Poland's Jacek Czakor got more and more confident as the rally got into its stride. He was 10th overall, 5.5 hours behind Nani Roma, but this year's revelation, and together with American Larry Roessler, who was 12th overall, they were always fighting for that magical top 10 position. Roessler lucky to get away with this. Finishing in 7th place overall was Frenchman David Frétigné on his maiden Dakar. The 450cc two-wheel drive Yamaha was the only machine to get up in amongst and be victorious against the KTMs on the stages. He won 2 stages in Europe and then 1 stage in Africa. He was just stunned, he couldn't believe it. Riding a quad on the Dakar is no easy task. But the man who did win the quad class was Cornel de Villiers, the only one of 11 quads to get to the finish, and a rookie at that. Well done. Have you seen the 2 Mitsubishis? They're ahead? Yes. She must keep in touch with the Mitsubishi Pajero Evos, but also keeping in touch with them were Nissan. They were to really harry the Mitsubishis, but in the end, flattered to deceive. At the start, the team was seen as a serious contender with 2 top-notch drivers, Ari Vatanen and Colin McRae. And as far as the numbers go, they did actually have a pretty good Dakar in 2004. The Finn clocked up his 50th stage victory, whilst McRae got 2 stage victories as a rookie. The team even had a 1-2-3 finish at Aon Elatrus, with Janil de Villiers finishing 7th by the time he got to Dakar itself. Nonetheless, Nissan will be remembered in this year's Dakar for their seemingly never-ending mechanical problems. It was beginning to annoy McRae.
A problem in the transmission, something's broken.
Harry Vatanen ended up by towing McRae all the way to Tajika for the very first time. The Nissans were quick and nimble, but in the end Vatanen retired after hitting a tree, and McRae and de Villiers were always checking their cars to the finish.
It's a vibration you feel when it starts.
Again, it's a new problem.
The problems were not only confined to McRae, but also de Villiers.
Well, it seems we have an electrical problem, and the car keeps on cutting out when we drive.
This year, all of the Nissan drivers needed a great deal of mechanical skills and elbow grease. But for Vatanen and McRae, having spent 2 nights out in the desert, they needed a great deal of dry humour as well.
Too much time.
Too much sun?
Yeah.
Nissan were lucky when stages 10 and 11 were cancelled. It gave them a chance to catch up, but even with an extra couple of days, they only just got Vatanen and McRae to the rest day at Bobo before the deadline of 6 o'clock. Hi Patrick, says Vatanen. It's okay, we're only 2 days late, but, well, it matters not. You're before 6 o'clock? Okay, well, that's good for us. The African landscapes would have been perfect for a Western. John Wayne could have been driving if he was still around. On board with Bruno Sabi, he says, is that him behind us on the left? Yeah. There goes Luke. Could you please clean my glasses? Oh, you've run out of tissues? Okay, no problem. They'll get me through to the end of the stage. Bruno Sabi continued with his Volkswagen Touareg all the way to Lac Rose in the team's first official outing with the car. The 5-cylinder turbo diesel got home in 6th position, just behind Andrea Meyer, the St. Bernard of the sand dunes.
Hello? Sorry, did you see Hiroshi pass? He passed? Yes,
Yeah.
this way?
Yeah.
Yes. And Hiroshi went there? Thank you.
Jutta Kleinschmidt lost her chance of a Dakar victory in the water in northern Africa. But she still clinched the team its debut stage victory with the brand new Touareg. However, the victory was made possible after an engine change. That was against the rules. So she got her victory, but the scandal kicked up quite a stir. On board with Gregoire de Mavius, he says, we're getting near the Elephant Rocks, yeah? Well, no, not yet. Really? I'll tell you when I see them. I'll doubt you see them. Why not? Because the elephants, well, they're as big as you are stupid. joking in the BMW X5, bringing a smile to Damavius's face when he went past the Elephant Rocks. But as soon as he went past them, things went from bad to worse. They had to stop to repair the suspension on the BMW, but soon it was done.
Ça va, maman, j'arrive.
He says, all right, Mum, I'm coming home. And then getting caught out on a patch of camel grass, he rolled the BMW 3 times. The oil came out and he fell back 4 spots in 3 days to finish in 8th position overall. He says it's the last time we take one of these onboard cameras. Twice we've had it and twice we have had problems. The camera always makes for a good scapegoat, but you can't blame it for the tough brakes. You can blame the speed, the rocks and the dunes, especially the dunes. Thierry Magnaldi was left pushing whilst others, well, they just had a barbecue. And even when Magnaldi was reversing, he still broke the car. Pretty good tracks ahead, though. But the one driver who managed to avoid these pitfalls was Luc Alphonse. As he notches up his Dakars, the pundits grow more and more impressed with his breakneck driving, which is so similar to the way that he was skiing to Olympic glory on the downhill. Luc Alphonse has certainly grown into a fully fledged driver and getting the better on one stage of Colin McRae to prove as such. Alphonse came out of the Dakar 2004 with 2 stage victories and a 4th position overall and leading Diesel. He says, me and my co-driver, we did our first few kilometres at the prologue. We'd never even driven together before and it was brilliant. From that moment on, we were doing fine, and with Henri's experience, it's just amazing. He's a great co-driver. He also knows the Dakar so very well. He's been in with Jean-Louis Schlesser, so he knows just what Schlesser is up to in front of us today. Henri knows that Schlesser is trying to trick us with his dust, but we must be careful not to fall into the trap. Alphonse never managed to overtake the crafty Schlesser, who hung on to 3rd position in the overall standings. Driving his famous self-built buggy, he proved once more to be a great Dakar specialist, and the only person able to rival the might of Mitsubishi. This year, Schlesser got 2 of his cars to the finish at Dakar, one with himself and the other with Spaniard Jose Maria Servia down in 18th position. Many villages were passed in Burkina Faso. His co-driver saying, shouldn't you be at school? All of the school children, though, given a day off school to watch the rally pass through. The stage from Bobo to Bamako was very dusty. It may have been short, but it went through 7 villages. And that meant that there were 7 control points where everybody had to do 30 kilometers an hour. And it was policed in a very simple way, policed by GPS. The satellite was always watching. Despite the speed limit, Ikamachi and Delizotti raced their production Nissan to victory in the class, ahead of Jean-Pierre Strugo after he retired. Meanwhile, German lady driver Andrea Meyer was set right from the word go to follow Hiroshi Mashioka and Stefan Pederhansel, and she, more than any of the drivers on this year's event, saw more of Africa than anybody else. January the 18th, 2004, the final day of the Dakar. And as teams contemplated getting out of bed to start the final stage, how fitting it was that some of the best weather conditions were there to greet them. When shifting into gear for the very first time at Clermont-Ferrand, many just hoped they'd make it to that final stage at Lac Rose. Come the end, though, just 163 made it from 607 who started. Thousands were out to see the final 27 kilometres and the final kilometres for Italy's Fabrizio Mioni, a two-time winner of the Dakar in this, his last event. Rookie David Bretigny certainly put his authority down on the event, but he was lucky to get away with this enormous accident in the final few yards. Cyril Dupre jumped for joy. He got another stage victory before coming to the final podium in third position. But in the final standings, it was to be a day for Spain. Nani Roma beat Richard Sank to the finish by just under 13 minutes. It was an emotional day for Nani from near Barcelona in Spain. He had failed to get to the finish 7 out of the previous 8 times, but this time the victory was his. Richard Sank, what could he have done without that crash early on in Morocco? Well, second was all he could do, even though he had fun on a KTM of a different kind at the finish. Cyril Dupre celebrated his third position, 45 minutes back of the winner. It could have been the win had it not been for navigational errors. But for Roma, it was bubbly time. He says, I'm so happy for my team after so much work. A team victory, but also a personal victory. I'm just so happy now. The production class winner was Frenchman Gilles Alguet. Whilst on 4 wheels, Cornel de Villiers from South Africa won the quad class. Roma from Sank, Dupre, Cox in 4th, Palanders Ulavaseta in 5th for Norway. Fabrizio Mioni bows out with 6 ahead of Bretigny, De Gavado, Flick and Chakor. Stefan Pederhansel left the start of the final day's stage in cautious style, something that Colin McRae did not. He was out for a stage victory, and he did just that, clinching his second of his rookie event. He would have been further up the finishing order were it not for those mechanical woes, but he still would have found it so hard to outshine Mitsubishi and Pederhansel with his teammate Mashioka behind him. At 38, the Frenchman adds to his legend with a triumph in the car class following his 6 victories on a motorcycle. He joins Hubert Auriol in the elite club of winners on both 2 and 4 wheels, with Mashioka and Jean-Louis Schlesser 2nd and 3rd alongside him on the podium. He says, I'm so very happy to win with somebody else alongside me. We made this victory together. We pushed right to the limit all of the time to get it, and it's so brilliant to share this win with somebody close to me alongside me. Schlesser was right to celebrate. He was hot on the heels of the works Mitsubishis. With Luc Alphonde in 4th position, he was victorious in the diesel class ahead of Andrea Meyer, Sabi, De Villiers, De Mavius, Magnaldi and Alatian as a rookie in 10th. as with Mitsubishi in the car class and KTM in the motorcycle class, Kamaz were the trucks that were to be so dominant on Dakar 2004. The all-Russian team thoroughly dominated the competition, with Vladimir Chigin winning his 4th Dakar rally in a row. He may have lost his teammates in years before, but this time it was a complete blue and white wash atop of the podium for Kamaz. They celebrated in style. They were loving it. He beat teammate Kabirov, whilst youngster Gerard de Roy was there in touch, but not on the podium. He'll be back many a year to come. So after nearly 7,000 miles of running, the Dakar is over for one more year, and we wave goodbye to it. We'll be back in 2005.